We know discussion posts measure almost nothing. And honestly, most of us hated them before ChatGPT ever showed up. So, why are they still the go to assessment in online classes? Students post 300 words, reply to two classmates, and everybody pretends meaningful learning just happened. Now, add AI like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Grok, Claude to the mix, and the whole thing get even weaker. So in this video, I'm going to give you three alternatives to the traditional discussion posts that require more student thinking, are more interesting for students to complete, and frankly, are more interesting for us to grade. And none of them require you to completely rebuild your online course. I'm Chris, and welcome to the AI Professor, where I help college professors figure out what AI means for the classroom without turning teaching into a full time career in AI policing. I've been teaching college students for 17 years, and lately I've been going back through my own assignment and asking one uncomfortable question. Could AI do this assignment without the student really having to think? Discussion boards are one of the first places I would look. You know the assignment. Read chapter 4 and discuss three things you learned. Or do you agree or disagree? Explain your answer in 300 words and respond to two classmates. We were doing this long before ChatGPT or AI showed up. And honestly, it was weak then. A student could skim the chapter, write something generic, respond to two classmates with some version of, I really liked your point, or I agree with you, and check the box. That never told us very much about what they actually understood. Now, AI can do the entire thing in seconds. So rather than trying to make that old discussion post slightly harder for I think we should ask a better question. What could students do instead that actually shows us how they think? Here are three options. The first one, give them a decision to make. This is probably my favorite. Give students a realistic scenario and make them make a decision, not a definition, not summarize a chapter, make a choice. For example, I teach criminal justice. Instead of asking, discuss the advantages and disadvantages of community policing, I could give students the scenario that they're the police chief in the community and they're experiencing a spike in car burglaries. Residents are demanding more patrols, but your department's already short staffed. I could then give them three options to address the problem and then ask the student to choose one and then ask them, why did they choose it? What is the biggest weakness in that decision? And what additional information would you want before actually implementing the decision? Now I have something worth reading. And you can do this in almost any discipline. Business students can make a hiring decision. Nursing students can prioritize patient care. Education students can respond to a classroom problem. Psychology students could evaluate a case. History students could make a decision from the perspective of someone living through that historical event that you're studying. The point is that students have to use course content. And if you really want to make this better, do one more thing. Change the situation after they answer. Maybe I come back and tell my students new information. Most of the burglaries are happening at one apartment complex between midnight and 4 a.m. Does this change that decision? Now I'm measuring something even more meaningful. Can they adjust their thinking when the facts change? That's the skill I actually care about. The second alternative is really simple. Stop requiring every response to be written. Have students explain something to you. And I'm talking short, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe four if the assignment really needs it. Give them a question that requires them to explain a decision, analyze something, or connect the course materials to a specific example. For example, choose one concept from this week's material and explain where you could actually see it being used in your future profession. Or here's a case. Tell me what you would do first and why. Now, could students still use ChatGPT to help prepare? Absolutely. That's true with almost everything we assign now. But if they use AI to brainstorm and then have to sit there and explain their thinking in their own words, I'm getting a lot more information about what they understand. And for the student, this can be a whole lot less painful than manufacturing another 300-word post just because I say they need to. It also gives students another way to communicate. Some students who struggle to write that polished paragraph can explain a concept beautifully when they're talking through it. And selfishly, I would rather listen to 32-minute explanations than read 30 versions of, I agree with John that communication is very important. I think my soul can only take so many of those. The third option is to have students produce something that has an actual purpose. This doesn't have to be elaborate. In fact, I would keep it small. Instead of saying, discuss the importance of this concept, ask, what could the student create with this information? Maybe they create a 1-page recommendation. Maybe they create a concept map. Maybe they complete a short policy memo, an infographic, a checklist, uh, for nursing, a patient handoff, maybe a lesson activity, a public information message, a simple action plan, something they could realistically encounter in the workforce outside of your class. And then add one small piece that I think really matters a lot. Make them explain one or two decisions they made while creating it. Why did you organize it this way? Why did you include this information and leave something out? What was the hardest decision you had to make? That explanation is often more valuable to me than the artifact itself because now I can see the thinking behind the final product. And again, AI might be part of the process. That is not automatically a problem. If your course allows students to use AI, you can even ask them to tell you how they used it. Maybe even ask them to show you their chat back and forth with the AI. But the student still has to make choices. They still have to understand the material well enough to decide what belongs in the final product. Now, I'm going to say, I know somebody in here is going to say in the comments, but Chris, the point of a discussion board is interaction. Fair. But I would argue that forcing every student to reply to two classmates doesn't automatically create that meaningful interaction. If you want interaction, build it into one of these assignments intentionally. For the decision scenario, have students compare their decision with someone who chose differently. For the created artifact, have students review one classmate's work and recommend one change. For that video response, ask them to listen to one person who approached the problem differently and explain whether it changed their own thinking. Now, that peer response, that interaction per se, actually had a purpose. That's a little bit different than respond to two classmates by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So here's what I would do before your next semester starts. Open one of your discussion assignments. Ask yourself 3 questions. Does this require the student to make a decision? Does this require them to apply what they learned? Does this give me evidence of how they are thinking? If the answer to all three of these questions is no, I would seriously consider replacing it. And you don't have to redo every discussion in your course. Start with one. Take the discussion post you already hate grading and replace it with a scenario, a short video response, or that small applied product. Take that discussion post you already know students are using AI to complete and choose that one to redo first. See what happens. Because ChatGPT did not suddenly make discussion posts bad. Let's be honest, a lot of them were bad already. AI just made it harder for us to ignore. And if we're going to spend our time grading something, I would much rather grade student decisions, explanations, and actual application than another perfectly formatted paragraph followed by two meaningless replies. So tell me in the comments, which one would you be most likely to try? The scenario, the video response, or the applied product? And if you have a discussion question you have been using forever and you have no idea what to replace it with, drop that in the comments too. I may take a few of them and redesign them in a future video. If you want more practical ways to redesign assignments for classroom where students have access to AI, check out this video and please subscribe to the AI Professor. I'll see you in the next video.